The heavens had opened with theatrical suddenness, a deluge transforming the familiar city streets into slick, reflective obstacle courses. Eleanor Vance, or Ellie as she preferred, wrestled with her cheap, stubbornly inverted umbrella, its flimsy spokes mocking her efforts. Rain plastered her bangs to her forehead, and a sigh of defeat escaped her lips just as the umbrella gave a final, pathetic pop and collapsed into a mangled wreck. Across the bustling sidewalk, huddled in the inadequate doorway of a closed bakery, a man shivered, his simple dark hoodie already soaked through, his gaze fixed on the downpour with a look of quiet despair that tugged at something in Ellie's chest. He looked, she thought, like a man who had forgotten what shelter felt like. Without a second thought, driven by an instinct she usually reserved for stray kittens or wilting houseplants, Ellie rummaged in her oversized tote bag. Her own reliable, sturdy blue umbrella, the one she saved for truly apocalyptic downpours, emerged. She marched over to him, the rain already seeping into her canvas shoes. "Excuse me," she said, her voice slightly breathless. He looked up, his eyes, a surprising shade of stormy gray, widening in surprise. "You look like you need this more than I do." She thrust the blue umbrella into his hands. He stared at it, then at her, a flicker of something unreadable in his expression, shock, perhaps, or suspicion, quickly followed by a dawning gratitude. Thank you," he managed, his voice a low rumble. "But what about you?" Ellie just shrugged, a small smile playing on her lips despite the cold rivulets tracing paths down her neck. "I'm surprisingly waterproof. Besides," she added, gesturing to her ruined contraption, "my primary defense has already surrendered." He offered a hesitant smile in return, the first hint of warmth she'd seen on his face. It softened the tired lines around his eyes. "I'll get it back to you," he promised, his grip tightening on the handle. Ellie, already backing away, waved a dismissive hand. "Don't worry about it. Pay it forward." And just like that, a sturdy blue umbrella became the unlikely bridge between a woman with a habit of rescuing strays and a man desperately trying to be one. Ellie lived in a small, slightly cluttered apartment above a fragrant, noisy bakery in a quieter part of the city. Her days were spent illustrating children's books, a profession that allowed for comfy sweaters, endless cups of tea, and the company of her ginger cat, Marmalade, who currently judged her damp state from his perch on a stack of art books. She often felt like a small, unnoticed detail in the grand, chaotic mural of the city, but she found her patches of color in the kindness of Mrs. Henderson downstairs, who always saved her a warm croissant, or the intricate patterns of frost on her window in winter. The city's mayor, Julian Croft, occasionally flickered across her small television screen, a distant, polished figure discussing budgets and bylaws, his face a mask of civic responsibility. He seemed, to Ellie, like a man encased in glass, untouchable and worlds away from her own tangible, paint-stained reality. Meanwhile, in a large, silent office overlooking the sprawling metropolis, Mayor Julian Croft felt the familiar weight of his position settle upon him. The blue umbrella leaned against his mahogany desk, a splash of unexpected color in the otherwise muted tones of his official life. Each meeting, each handshake, each carefully worded public statement felt like adding another layer to the invisible armor he wore. His outings in disguise, simple clothes, a baseball cap pulled low, were his only escape, his desperate attempts to breathe unfiltered air, to see the city and its people without the distorting lens of his title. A news alert pinged on his tablet. Mayor Croft under fire for proposed transport levy. He swiped it away. The pressure was immense, the scrutiny relentless. He'd started these anonymous walks to understand, to connect, but lately they felt more like searching for a version of himself he'd lost. The memory of the woman's easy kindness, her unhesitating generosity, was a small, warm ember in the chill of his thoughts. A few days later, armed with the blue umbrella and a considerable amount of nervous energy, Julian, or Jay, as he decided to call this version of himself, found Ellie sketching in a small park near her neighborhood. A half-eaten apple beside her on the bench. Marmalade, on a leash, was batting playfully at a dandelion. He almost turned back, the normalcy of the scene feeling both inviting and alarmingly foreign. But the thought of her open, friendly face pulled him forward. "Excuse me," he began, and she looked up, her eyes widening in recognition before a smile spread across her face. "The umbrella man. I didn't think I'd see you again." "I told you I'd return it," Jay said, holding it out. He felt an uncharacteristic awkwardness. "And I wanted to thank you properly. Coffee? My treat." Ellie's smile widened. I like that. Over lukewarm lattes in a cozy, steam-filled cafe, he found himself talking more easily than he had in years. He told her he did logistics for the city, a vague description that was technically true but miles from the whole story. She, in turn, spoke of her illustrations, her dreams of one day having her own book published, not just adding pictures to others' words. There was an earnestness about her, a complete lack of artifice that he found disarmingly refreshing. He almost confessed then, the words, "I'm actually the mayor," hovering on his tongue, but the fear of shattering this fragile, easy connection, of seeing her open expression close off, made him hesitate. Instead, he clumsily knocked his spoon, sending a spray of coffee onto her sketchbook. Mortified, he grabbed a napkin, dabbing uselessly at the page. Ellie, after an initial gasp, started to laugh, a bright, genuine sound that made his chest ache with a strange mix of relief and longing. "Well," she said, eyeing the brown splotch, "I guess that character always wanted a coffee birthmark." The shared laughter eased the tension, but the unspoken truth settled between them, a silent, invisible barrier. Their coffee meetings became a regular occurrence. Jay found himself rearranging his mayoral schedule for stolen hours with Ellie. They explored hidden corners of the city he'd only ever seen on planning documents. Tiny community gardens, quirky independent bookstores, riverside paths where the noise of traffic faded to a murmur. He helped her carry a bulky canvas she'd bought, listening as she animatedly described the landscape she planned to paint. She, noticing his often bare apartment, he'd rented a small, anonymous place for his J persona, gifted him a ridiculously cheerful potted succulent to bring some life into the place. Ellie began to notice little inconsistencies about Jay. The way he sometimes phrased things, with an almost mayoral authority, before catching himself and adopting a more casual tone. The expensive-looking, understated watch he wore, quickly tucking it under his sleeve if he caught her looking. His surprisingly nuanced understanding of municipal codes when she complained about a pothole on her street. "You know a lot about logistics," she'd tease, and he'd just offer that quiet, enigmatic smile. He, in turn, was captivated by her. He loved the smudge of paint that always seemed to be on her cheek, the intense focus in her eyes when she sketched, the way she spoke about her characters as if they were real people. He learned about her slight fear of public speaking, her fierce loyalty to her friends, her unwavering belief in the good of people, even when the city news painted a grim picture. It was a stark contrast to the cynical political maneuvering he navigated daily. One sunny afternoon, they found themselves at a local street fair, a vibrant tapestry of food stalls, craft vendors, and live music. Ellie, delighted, dragged him towards a stall selling handmade pottery. As she examined a brightly glazed mug, Jay felt a familiar prickle of unease. A local news crew was weaving through the crowd, their camera panning widely. Instinctively, he grabbed Ellie's arm and pulled her behind a large, inflatable bouncy castle, his heart hammering. "What is it?" she asked, startled. Allergic to accordions," he stammered, gesturing vaguely towards the bandstand where a musician was indeed coaxing wheezing notes from the instrument. Ellie raised an eyebrow, a skeptical smile playing on her lips, but she let it go. The near miss, however, left Jay shaken. The walls of his carefully constructed anonymity felt suddenly paper-thin. His chief of staff, a formidable woman named Agnes, had also been urging him to be more visible, more of the people for PR reasons, ironically the very thing he was trying to achieve authentically, if covertly. The emotional stakes were rising with every shared laugh, every quiet conversation. Jay knew he was falling for Ellie, hard. The thought of her discovering his deception, of seeing hurt and betrayal in those honest eyes, was a constant, gnawing fear. For Ellie, Jay was a delightful enigma, a kind, thoughtful man who seemed to carry a hidden sadness. Her best friend, Chloe, a pragmatic lawyer, had voiced concerns. "He's charming, Ellie, but so mysterious. Just be careful, okay?" One evening, a culmination of shared warmth and unspoken tension occurred. Ellie had invited Jay for dinner at her apartment. They'd cooked pasta together, a slightly chaotic but joyful affair, flour dusting their clothes, the small kitchen filled with laughter and the aroma of garlic and basil. It felt incredibly, dangerously real. As they sat on her worn sofa, talking softly, the city lights twinkling outside her window, he leaned in, his gaze holding hers. The air crackled. And then his phone buzzed, a sharp, insistent summons. He glanced at it, his expression instantly shifting, the easygoing Jay vanishing, replaced by a harried, authoritative tension. "I have to go," he said abruptly, already on his feet. "Work emergency." He was gone before Ellie could process the sudden shift, leaving her standing in the middle of her cozy living room, the scent of their shared meal still lingering, a profound sense of confusion and a sharp pang of disappointment settling in her heart. Later that night, unable to sleep, Ellie idly flipped through news channels. A report on a sudden water main break flooding a downtown district caught her attention. Mayor Julian Croft was on scene, looking tired but in command, directing city crews. Ellie froze. There was something in his posture, the set of his jaw as he listened intently to an engineer. It was Jay. Or rather, Jay was him. The resemblance, previously a fleeting, dismissible thought, now hit her with the force of a physical blow. The articulate speech, the knowledge of the city, the sudden departures. It couldn't be. She told herself it was the late hour, or overactive imagination. But a cold seed of doubt had taken root, chilling her to the bone. Julian, meanwhile, was consumed by guilt and indecision. The close call at the festival, the near kiss, the abrupt departure, it was all unraveling. He couldn't keep compartmentalizing his life, couldn't keep lying to Ellie. The joy he found with her was inextricably tangled with the fear of the inevitable fallout. He knew, with a certainty that settled like lead in his stomach, that he had to tell her. He sent her a simple text. "Can we meet tomorrow? There's something important I need to tell you." He met her at their usual cafe the next afternoon, the cheerful clatter of cups and conversation a stark contrast to the turmoil inside him. Ellie was subdued, her usual bright energy muted. He saw the question in her eyes, a hint of the doubt he'd inadvertently planted. "Ellie," he began, his voice hoarse, "I haven't been completely honest with you." Just as he was about to lay bare his charade, his aide, Agnes, burst into the cafe, her expression grim. "Mr. Mayor, thank goodness I found you. There's a situation. That blogger from the street fair? Her photo of you and Ms. Vance is gaining traction online. They're calling you the mystery mayor. The press is starting to sniff around her neighborhood." Ellie's eyes darted from Agnes, who'd addressed him as Mr. Mayor, back to Jay, her face paling. The pieces clicked into place with brutal clarity. "Mayor," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The truth tumbled out in a rush, a clumsy, painful confession from Julian. His reasons, his loneliness, his genuine feelings for her, all mixed with apologies for the deception. Agnes was already ushering him towards the door. "Sir, we need to go? Now. We can manage the PR, but you need to be seen at City Hall." Ellie just stared, her expression a mixture of shock, hurt, and dawning anger. "Was any of it real?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Or was I just some mayoral field trip?" "No, Ellie, never," Julian pleaded, his heart clenching at her words. "It was all real. Please, let me explain properly. Meet me tonight. The Botanical Garden, by the old fountain, 7 o'clock. He looked back at her, his eyes filled with anguish, before Agnes practically pulled him away, leaving Ellie alone amidst the oblivious chatter of the cafe, the world tilting on its axis. Dusk was settling over the Botanical Garden, casting long shadows as Ellie waited by the old stone fountain. The scent of damp earth and roses filled the air, usually a comfort, now just a backdrop to her inner storm. She felt betrayed, foolish, her memories of Jay now tainted by the knowledge of Julian Croft, the mayor. He arrived, looking stripped of his official persona, just a man, tired and anxious. He didn't try to make excuses, but laid out his life, the suffocating pressures, the isolation at the top, the yearning for something genuine that had led him to his disguised walks, and then to her. "I never meant to hurt you, Ellie," he said, his voice raw. "Meeting you, being Jay, it was the most real thing in my life for a long time. But I was a coward. I was afraid to lose it, and in trying to keep it, I ended up doing just that." Ellie listened, her arms crossed, a protective barrier. "So, what was I to you, Julian? An escape? An experiment in normalcy?" The hurt was evident in every syllable. "Did you laugh about it with your staff? The naive artist who fell for the logistics guy?" His face crumpled. "No. God, no. Every moment with you was precious. It was me, Ellie. The part of me I thought I'd lost. You saw me, the real me, even when I was hiding behind a fake name and a hoodie." He stepped closer, his gaze pleading. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking you to believe that. The feelings were real. What I feel for you is real." He paused, then added, his voice barely a whisper, "I understand if you can't. If this is too much, I won't pressure you. I had to tell you the truth, all of it." He stood there, utterly vulnerable, offering no defense, only his honesty and the clear pain of potential loss. Ellie looked at him, truly looked at the man before her, not the mayor from the news, nor just the charming Jay from the park, but someone who was both, and more. She saw the genuine remorse in his eyes, the fear, and beneath it, the same kindness she'd first been drawn to. The deception was a bitter pill, but the connection, that had felt undeniably true. Her anger began to soften, replaced by a complicated ache. The mayor, she said slowly, is a stranger to me. A powerful man who lied. But Jay, she hesitated, searching his face. Jay was kind. He listened. He made me laugh. And he looked like he needed that umbrella. A small, watery smile touched her lips. It was the mayor who lied, Jay. Not about the important things, I don't think. A fragile silence settled between them, broken only by the gentle splash of the fountain. Julian's shoulders sagged slightly with relief, but his eyes remained questioning, hopeful. Ellie took a tentative step towards him, then another. She reached out, her fingers brushing his arm. This is a lot, Julian. Jay, whoever you are right now. He covered her hand with his own, his touch warm, grounding. I know, and I'm sorry. For all of it. A faint smile touched Ellie's lips. So, Mr. Mayor, she said, a hint of her old teasing tone returning, does this mean I can finally get that pothole on my street fixed? He let out a shaky laugh, the sound echoing softly in the twilight. Consider it done. He paused, his gaze earnest. We can take this, however slowly you want. Or not at all. It's your choice, Ellie. She looked at their joined hands, then up at his face, seeing not a politician or a stranger, but the man she'd shared coffee and laughter with, the man who looked so lost in the rain. The path ahead was uncertain, complicated, but the thought of walking away from him felt like closing a door on a rare and unexpected light. Later that week, Julian, not Jay, knocked on her apartment door. He held 2 coffees from a local shop, her favorite intricate latte, and a plain black coffee for himself. He also carried a small, slightly lopsided cake from the bakery downstairs. Peace offering? He asked, a hopeful smile on his face. Ellie leaned against the doorframe, the blue umbrella visible in the stand just behind her. Depends, she said, her eyes sparkling. Is the cake any good? Mrs. Henderson vouches for it, he replied, his smile widening. He looked less like a mayor and more like the man who'd been grateful for a borrowed umbrella, a man learning to navigate the world without disguise, at least with her. She stepped aside, holding the door open. Well, in that case, Ellie said, a warmth spreading through her. Come on in. Tell me about your day. The real one. He met her gaze, his own full of a quiet, profound promise, and as he stepped inside, the city outside, with all its demands and deceptions, seemed to fade just a little.